we're doing some book today for a change, and what we're going to do here is a favorite book of mine, Anna Karenina. It's by Leo Tolstoy. His full name is Leo Nikolaevich Tolstoy. It's translated by Constance Garnett, and the book is about this interesting lady and her life, along with more other interesting characters, specifically men. So here's something. Here it goes. In chapter 1, we see happy families are all alike. Every unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. Everything was in confusion in the Oblonsky's house. The wife had discovered that the husband was carrying on an intrigue with a French girl who had been a governess in their family, and she had announced to her husband that she could not go on living in the same house with him. So, this position of affairs had now lasted 3 days, and not only the husband and wife themselves, but all the members of their family and household were painfully conscious of it. So, every person in the house felt that there was no sense in their living together, and that the stray people brought together by chance in any inn had more in common with one another than they, the members of the family and household of the Oblongskis. The wife did not leave her own room. The husband had not been at home for 3 days. The children ran wild all over the house. The English governess quarreled with the housekeeper and wrote to a friend asking her to look out for a new situation for her. The man cook had walked out the day before, just at dinner time. The kitchen maid and the coachman had given warning. 3 days after the quarrel, Prince Stefan Arkadievich Oblonsky, Steva as he was called in the fashionable world, woke up at his usual hour. That is 8 o'clock in the morning, not in his wife's bedroom, but on the leather covered sofa in his study. He turned over his stout, well cared for person on the springy sofa as though he would sink into a long sleep again. He vigorously embraced the pillow on the other side and buried his face in it. But all at once he jumped up, sat up on the sofa, and opened his eyes. Yes, how was it now? He thought, going over his dream. Now, how was it? To be sure, Alabin was giving a dinner at Darmstadt. No, not Darmstadt, but something American. Yes, but then Darmstadt was in America. Yes, Labrin was giving a dinner on glass tables, and the tables sang Il mio tesoro, not Il mio tesoro, though, but something better. And there was some sort of little decanters on the table, and they were women too, he remarked. Stefan Arkadyevish's eyes twinkled gaily, and he pondered with a smile. Yes, it was nice, very nice. There was a great deal more than that was delightful, only there was no putting it into words or even expressing it in one's thoughts. Awake and noticing a gleam of light peeping in beside one of the serge curtains, he cheerfully dropped his feet over the edge of the sofa and felt about with them for his slippers, a present on his last birthday, worked for him by his wife on gold-colored morocco. And as he had done every day for the last 9 years, he stretched out his hand without getting up towards the place where his dressing gown always hung in his bedroom, and thereupon he suddenly remembered that he was not sleeping in his wife's room but in his study, and why the smile vanished from his face. He knitted his brows. Ooh, he muttered, recalling everything that had happened. And again, every detail of his quarrel with his wife was present to his imagination. All the hopelessness of his position, and worst of all, his own fault. Yes, she won't forgive me, and she can't forgive me. And the most awful thing about it all is that it's all my fault. All my fault, though I'm not to blame. That's the point of the whole situation. he reflected. Oh ho ho, he kept repeating in despair as he remembered the acutely painful sensations caused him by the quarrel. Most unpleasant of all was the first minute when, on coming happy and good humored from the theatre with a huge pear in his hand for his wife, he had not found his wife in the drawing room. To his surprise, had not found her in the study either, and saw her at last in her bedroom with the unlucky letter that revealed everything in his hand. She, his dolly, forever fussing and worrying about household details and limited in her ideas as he considered, was sitting perfectly still with the letter in her hand, looking at him with an expression of horror, despair, and indignation. What's this? She asked, pointing to the letter. And at this recollection, Stefan Arkadyevitch, as is so often the case, was not so much annoyed at the fact itself as the way in which he had met his wife's words. They happened to him at that instant what does happen to people when they are unexpectedly caught in something very disgraceful. He did not succeed in adapting his face to the position in which he was placed towards his wife by the discovery of his fault. Instead of being hurt, denying, defending himself, begging forgiveness, instead of remaining indifferent, even anything would have been better than what he did do. His face utterly, involuntarily reflects final action, reflected Stefan Arkadovich, who was fond of physiology, utterly involuntarily assumed its habitual good humored and therefore idiotic smile. This idiotic smile, he could not forgive himself. Catching sight of that smile, Dolly shuddered as though at physical pain, broke out with her characteristic heat into a flood of cruel words, and rushed out of the room. Since then, she had refused to see her husband. It's that idiotic smile that's to blame for it all, thought Stefan Arkadyevitch. But what was he to do? What was to be done? He said to himself in despair, and found no answer. In chapter 2, we see that Stefan Arkadyevitch was a truthful man in his relations with himself. He was incapable of deceiving himself and persuading himself that he repented of his conduct. He could not, at this date, repent of the fact that he, a handsome, susceptible man of 34, was not in love with his wife, the mother of 5 living and 2 dead children, and only a year younger than himself. All he repented of was that he had not succeeded better in hiding it from his wife. But he felt all the difficulty of his position and was sorry for his wife, his children, and himself. Possibly he might have managed to conceal his sins better from his wife if he had anticipated that the knowledge of them would have had such an effect on her. He had never clearly thought out the subject, but he had vaguely conceived that his wife must long ago have suspected him of being unfaithful to her and shut her eyes to the fact. He had even supposed that she, a worn-out woman, no longer young or good-looking, and in no way remarkable or interesting, merely a good mother, ought, from a sense of fairness, to take an indulgent view. It had turned out quite the other way. Oh, it's awful. Oh dear, awful. Stephen Arkadyevitch kept repeating to himself, and he could think of nothing to be done. And how well things were going up until now, how well we got on. She was contented and happy in her children. I never interfere with her in anything. I tell her manage the children and the house just as she liked. It's true, it's bad her having been a governess in a house. That's bad. There's something common vulgar in flirting with one's governess. But what a governess! He vividly recalled the roguish black eyes of Mile Ronald and her smile of Madame Ronald and her smile. But after all, while she was in the house, I kept myself in hand, and the worst of it all was that she already, it seems as if ill luck would have it so. Oh, what's to be done now? There was no solution But that universal solution with life gives to all questions, even the most complex and insoluble. The answer is one must live in the needs of the day. That is, forget oneself. To forget himself in sleep was impossible now, at least until night time. He could not go back now to the song, to the music sung by the decanter woman, so that he must forget himself now in the dream of daily life. Then we shall see, Stefan Arkadevich said to himself, and getting up, he put on a grey dressing gown lined with blue silk, tied the tassels in a knot, and drawing a deep breath of air into his broad, bare chest, he walked to the window with his usual confident step, turning out his feet that carried his full frame so easily. He pulled up the blind and rang the bell loudly. It was at once answered by the appearance of an old friend, his valet, Matui, carrying his clothes, his boots, and a telegram. Maui was followed by Matui was followed by the barber with all the necessaries for shaving. Are there any papers from the office? Asked Stefan Arkadevich, taking the telegram and seating himself at the looking glass. On the table, replied Matui, glancing with inquiring sympathy at his master, and after a short pause he added with a slight smile, they've sent from the carriage jobbers. Stefan Arkadevich made no reply. He merely glanced at Matui in the looking glass. In the glance in which their eyes met in the looking glass, it was clear that they understood one another. Stefan Arkadevich's eyes asked, "Why do you tell me that? Don't you know?" Matui put his hands in his jacket pockets, thrust out one leg, and gazed silently, good humoredly, with a faint smile at his master. "I told them to come on Sunday and tell them not to trouble you or themselves for nothing," he said. He had obviously prepared the sentence beforehand. Stefan Arkadevich saw Matui wanted to make a joke and attract attention to himself. Tearing open the telegram, he read it through, guessing at the words misspelled as they always are in telegrams, and his face brightened. "Marvi, my sister Anna Arkadevna will be here tomorrow," he said, shaking for a minute the sleek, plump hand of the barber, cutting a pink path through his long, curly whiskers. "Thank God," said Marvi, showing by this response that he, like his master, realized the significance of this arrival. That is, that Anna Arkadevna, the sister he was so fond of, might bring about a reconciliation between the husband and wife. "Alone or with her husband?" inquired Matui. Stefan Arkadevich could not answer, as the barber was at work on his upper lip, and he raised one finger. Matui nodded at the looking glass. "Alone? Is a room to be got ready upstairs? Inform Daria Alexandrova where she orders." "Daria Alexandrovna?" Matui repeated as though in doubt. "Yes, inform her. Here, take the telegram, give it to her, and then do what she tells you." "You want to try it on?" Matui understood, but he only said, "Yes, sir." Stefan Arkadevich was already washed and combed and ready to be dressed when Matui stepped deliberately in his creaky boots, came back into the room with the telegram in his hand. The barber had gone. "Daria Alexandrovna told me to inform you that she is going away. Let him do, that is you, do as he likes," he said, laughing with only his eyes and putting his hands in his pockets. He watched his master with his head on one side. Stefan Arkadevich was silent for a minute. Then a good-humored and rather pitiful smile showed itself on his handsome face. Matui," he said, shaking his head. "It's all right, sir. She'll come around," said Matui. "Come around? Yes, sir." "Do you think so?" "Who's there?" asked Stefan Arkadevich, hearing the rustle of a woman's dress at the door, its eyes at a firm, pleasant woman's voice, and the stern, pockmarked face of Matrona Filimonovna. Filimonov, Filimonovna. The nurse was thrust in the doorway. Well, what is it, Matrona? Queried Stefan Arkadyevich, going up to her at the door, although Stefan Arkadyevich was completely in the wrong as regards his wife and was conscious of this himself. Almost everyone in the house, even the nurse, Darya Alexandrovna, chief ally, was on his side. Well, what now? He asked disconsolately. Go to her, sir. Won't your fault again. Maybe God will aid you. She is suffering so. It's sad to see her. And besides, everything in the house is topsy-turvy. You must have pity, sir, on the children. Beg her forgiveness, sir. There's no help for it. One must take the consequences. But you won't see me. You do your part. God is merciful. Pray to God, sir. Pray to God. Come, that'll do. You can go, said Stefan Arkadyevich, blushing suddenly. Well, now do dress me. He turned to Murphy and threw off his dressing gown decisively. Murphy was already looking up the shirt like a horse's collar and blowing off some invisible speck. He slipped it with obvious pleasure over the well groomed body of his master.